I had been working at Harlow and Briggs Accounting for almost 3 years when the strange things began. And even now, when I think about those early days, I curse myself for not noticing the warning signs sooner. Our office was one of those old corporate floors where the air always felt slightly recycled, and the fluorescent lights flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. Every cubicle looked exactly the same. Every hallway echoed the same dull footsteps, and every morning smelled like burnt coffee and tired employees. But there was one thing, or rather, one person, who stood out from the monotony. His name was Edward Eddie Klein, and he worked in what we all called the glass office, a small corner room made entirely of soundproof panels. You could see inside, but you could never hear a single thing. Not his keyboard, not his voice, not even a cough. It was like watching someone trapped in a silent movie. Eddie was strange, not in a loud, dramatic way. He was strange because he barely existed at all. He came in before everyone else, left long after we were gone, and never, ever joined anyone for lunch. If you tried saying good morning, he would offer a stiff nod, stare right past you, and then disappear behind the glass like a ghost returning to its coffin. Rumors spread quickly, of course. Some said he lived in the office. Others swore they saw him standing in the dark break room long after midnight. A few joked that he wasn't human at all, just a leftover part of the building nobody bothered to replace. But there was one thing about Eddie that unsettled everyone. He stared, constantly, blankly, through the glass, like he wasn't looking at you, but through you. Every so often, I'd feel a chill crawl up my spine while typing, and when I looked up, there he was, standing inside that glass room, motionless, watching me with expressionless, unblinking eyes, not studying me, not judging me, just staring, like he was memorizing every breath I took. At first, I brushed it off. Probably just daydreaming, I told myself. But day after day, the staring continued, long enough to make my skin prickle. And then, one morning, something happened that I still can't explain. I arrived early, around 6:15 a.m., before the sun had fully risen. The office was dark and silent, except for the faint hum of the central air system. I scanned my keycard, stepped inside, and froze. The glass office lights were on, and Eddie was inside. But something was terribly wrong. He wasn't sitting at his computer. He wasn't sorting papers. He wasn't even facing the desk. He was standing in the center of the room, completely still, with his head tilted sharply to the side, almost unnaturally, like a broken mannequin. His eyes were wide open, focused on the doorway where I stood, as if he had been waiting for me. A jolt of cold fear ran through my entire body. My breath caught. My heart hammered violently. I tried to tell myself he was just tired or stretching his neck, but the longer I stared, the more I realized. He wasn't moving at all, not blinking, not breathing, not shifting his weight, just frozen, watching me. Then, and I swear I'm not exaggerating, the lights in his office flickered once, and suddenly he wasn't there anymore. The glass room was empty. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, stepped closer. Empty, silent, perfectly still. I stood there, trembling, unable to understand what I had seen. And just as I turned toward my desk, I felt something, a whisper of cold air brushing the back of my neck, like someone had walked right behind me. But no one had entered, and no one had left. That was the moment I realized. Whatever Eddie Klein was, he wasn't just quiet. Something was terribly, horribly wrong with him. And my nightmare had only just begun. I tried to shake off the morning incident, convincing myself that maybe the darkness and lack of sleep had played tricks on me. But the feeling wouldn't leave. All day, my mind kept returning to that moment. Eddie staring at me with his head twisted unnaturally and then vanishing the instant the lights flickered. By lunchtime, I couldn't focus on a single spreadsheet. My hands kept trembling on the keyboard. Every shadow felt like it moved. When I glanced at the glass office, Eddie was inside, typing like nothing had happened. His posture was stiff, his movements robotic. But he looked normal enough. Normal enough to make me question everything. So I tried to stop thinking about it until something even stranger happened. Around 3 p.m., I was asked to deliver some archived files to upper management. When I opened the shared drive folder, I saw something I wasn't supposed to. A folder labeled Glass Office Restricted, Klein. My stomach twisted. I wasn't the type to snoop, but the name hit me like a punch. I clicked it. Inside were dozens of video files, all unnamed, all time-stamped between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Why would anyone have footage from those hours? Nobody was supposed to be in the building then. I hovered the mouse over one file, and before I could stop myself, I opened it. At first, the video was nothing but static, like an old VHS that never belonged in a digital format. Then the camera slowly stabilized. The shot pointed directly at the glass office. The room was dark, except for the faint glow of a computer monitor. And Eddie was sitting in the center of the room, completely motionless, facing the camera. Except his face didn't look right. His eyes were wide, unnaturally wide, and his mouth was hanging open in a silent scream. Not like he was yelling, but like something was forcing his jaw open from the inside. I felt nausea roll through me. Then, suddenly, in the grainy footage, he stood up, not naturally, not like a human. He snapped upright, like strings were pulling him. The lights flickered in the video, and he disappeared, just like I had seen earlier. My blood ran cold. Before I could close the file, something else happened. The static returned, then a whispering sound curled through my headphones. At first it was soft, distant, like wind sliding under a door. Then it grew clearer, sharper. A voice, a whisper. My name. Daniel. My entire body froze. The headphones slipped from my hands and hit the desk with a sharp thud. I stared at the screen, horrified. How could the video whisper my name? Why would Eddie, or whatever was inside that office, know I was watching? I slammed the folder shut and pulled the plug from my computer. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might faint. And then, something made me look up. Through the transparent glass of Eddie's office, he was staring at me again. But this time, he wasn't inside the office. He was standing right behind the glass, inches from the window, his face pressed against it, eyes wide, mouth stretched open just like in the video. His breath fogged up the glass with long, slow exhalations. I stumbled back in my chair, blinking, panicking. But in the next second, he was gone. The glass was empty, and I realized something terrifying. He wasn't staring at me. He was watching the screen. He knew I'd opened the files. And whatever Eddie was, it didn't want me looking any deeper. That night, I went home shaking. I checked every lock twice, turned on every light in the apartment, sat awake listening for any sound outside my door because somehow it felt like Eddie's empty, stretched open stare had followed me home. I tried calling a coworker, Jenna, someone I trusted, but her voice was shaky the moment I mentioned Eddie. Daniel, don't get involved. Please, just drop it. Why? What's going on? She exhaled shakily. You don't understand. People who notice him, people who ask questions, they don't last long here. What do you mean by don't last long? I snapped. Silence. Then, in a strained whisper, some quit, some never come back, and some just disappear. Before I could ask more, she hung up. I barely slept that night. Each time my eyelids grew heavy, I saw Eddie's face pressed against that glass, the unnatural angles of his body, the way he vanished into thin air. The next morning, I decided I needed answers. I didn't care if it made me look paranoid. I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. So I went to HR. The manager, a stiff, overly polite woman named Meredith, welcomed me into her office with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What exactly is the concern?" she asked. I took a shaky breath. "It's about Eddie Klein." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "I'd like to know what his role is, why he works in a soundproof office, and why there are surveillance videos of him at 2 in the morning. For the first time, her smile faltered. "There are no surveillance videos of employees," she said firmly. "Yes, there are," I insisted. "I saw them. Someone is recording Eddie every night." Her voice hardened. "Daniel, that office and Edward Klein are not matters you need to worry about." I leaned forward. I saw him disappear. Her gaze snapped up sharply. "Disappear?" "Yes," I whispered. "Right in front of me." She stared at me for a long time, her face unreadable. Then she spoke in a slow, careful tone. "Daniel, the glass office hasn't been used in years." I froze. "What are you talking about? Eddie is in there every day." She shook her head slowly. "No one named Edward Klein has worked here since 2012. He died in that office." My mouth went dry. "That's not possible," I whispered. "I see him every day." Her voice dropped to a nearly inaudible murmur. "Then you need to leave before he starts seeing you back." A chill shot through me so violently I felt sick. I stumbled out of her office, heart pounding, mind spinning, and as I walked past the hallway, my breath caught in my throat. The glass office was empty, but written in fog on the inside of the glass, like someone had pressed their mouth to it, were 4 chilling words. "I see you, Daniel." For the rest of the day, I couldn't look at the glass office without feeling my stomach twist into painful knots. Every time my eyes drifted toward it, I saw only my own reflection staring back at me. But the memory of those fog-written words felt burned into the glass, etched into my mind like a scar I couldn't scrub clean. I tried to work. I really did. But every sound, a chair rolling, a pen falling, a coworker coughing, made me flinch. I felt watched, not by people, by something else. Something cold, something patient, something that remembered my name. By 5:45 p.m., most of the office had emptied, but my manager asked me to finish a report before leaving. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to run home and bolt the door shut. But fear made me obedient, and I stayed behind while the building slowly drowned in silence. Around 7 p.m., the overhead lights dimmed automatically, sensors adjusting to the lack of movement. My cubicle sank into a gloomy half-dark. Only the glass office, with its motion-activated light, glowed eerily across the floor like a beacon calling me towards something I didn't want to understand. I kept my head down and typed as quickly as I could, trying to distract myself with numbers and formulas. But then, without warning, I felt a shift in the air. The pressure in the room changed, like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. Cold air brushed the back of my neck. I didn't want to turn. My instinct screamed not to, but slowly, painfully. I turned my head. The glass office light flickered once, twice, 3 times. Then it stayed on, and Eddie was inside. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't working. He was standing perfectly still in the far corner, his face aimed at the floor, his arms hanging limp at his sides. His body didn't rise with breath. His shadow didn't move. He looked dead. I shot to my feet, but my legs felt like jelly. I took a shaky step back from my desk, my pulse hammering so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Then Eddie moved, slowly, unnervingly. His head lifted, as though his neck were resisting the motion, bending at angles no human neck should ever bend. His eyes locked onto mine through the glass. His mouth twitched. And then, with a suddenness that made me gasp, he slammed both of his hands against the window. The entire office echoed with the impact. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. Eddie dragged his palms down the glass, leaving long streaks, like he was pulling something invisible toward himself. And then, in a low, muffled voice, like a whisper buried underwater, he spoke. "Stay late." Again. I bolted. I didn't finish the report. I didn't grab my bag. I didn't even shut my computer down. I ran for the elevator as fast as my legs could carry me. But as the doors slid shut, I looked back one last time. Eddie was gone. The glass room was empty. But a new message had appeared on the window, written with something darker than fog. "You shouldn't have looked. I didn't go to work the next morning. I couldn't. I woke up drenched in sweat, convinced I'd heard footsteps in my hallway during the night. I checked every corner of my apartment, every closet, every inch under my bed. Even then, it didn't feel safe. So I called Jenna. She answered on the first ring, her tone immediately panicked. "Daniel? Oh God, did he approach you?" "No," I said, pacing my living room. But he spoke to me. Last night. He said, "Don't repeat it," she snapped. "Don't give his words power." "Jenna, what the hell is going on? HR told me he died years ago." "He did," she whispered. "And they never closed the room. They were supposed to seal it. They were supposed to shut it down. But no one did. Now he's stuck there. Stuck between moments. Stuck repeating the same nightmare." "Why does he watch us?" I asked. "He's not watching us," she replied. "He's looking for something. Or someone. I think he picks one person at a time. And now he's picked me," I whispered. I expected her to deny it, to tell me I was imagining things. But she didn't. Instead, she told me something that made my blood turn to ice. "Daniel, everyone he chooses starts seeing him outside of the office." I froze. "Outside? What do you mean outside?" "In reflections, in windows, in doorways, in the corner of their eye. He follows them home. And when he shows up physically, not just through glass, that's when you're in danger." My heart dropped. He was physically there yesterday. He slammed his hands on the window. Jenna inhaled sharply, terror bleeding into every sound she made. "You need to leave, Daniel. Not the office. The city." "What? I can't just—" "Do it!" she cried. "Before he decides you belong with him." The call ended abruptly, leaving me shaking, confused, and horrified. I knew I needed answers. Something more concrete than rumors and whispered warnings. So I drove back to the office building that evening. Not inside, but to the maintenance entrance where I knew the night crew stored old records. The janitor, an older man named Miguel, found me rummaging through old boxes. At first, he scolded me, but when I said Eddie's name, he went pale. "You saw him," he whispered. "Yes." "You shouldn't come back here. That room, it's wrong. It's not just haunted. It's off. A tear, a wound. You understand?" I shook my head. Miguel sighed, then pulled out an old binder and flipped through until he found an incident report. Edward Klein didn't die in his sleep, Miguel said. He died in that office, and when they found him, his body was wrong. Wrong how? He shut the binder. Neck broken, spine twisted, eyes wide open like he died staring at something that terrified him. I felt sick. Then why does he still appear? Miguel stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because he didn't see it coming. He never finished dying. His last moment is stuck, and now he makes others relive it. A chill crawled through me. Why me? Miguel swallowed hard. Because you noticed him, I should have left the city. I should have listened to Jenna and Miguel. But fear does strange things to people. It makes you freeze, doubt, hesitate. And by the next morning, I convinced myself I was overreacting. So, like a fool, I returned to work. The office was oddly quiet, more than usual. People avoided eye contact, avoided looking at the glass office, avoided me. They knew something they weren't saying. When I reached my cubicle, there was a note on my keyboard. Don't go near the glass room. Whatever happens, don't answer him. No name. No handwriting I recognized. Just a warning that made my spine crawl. I wanted to leave, but my manager insisted I finish that same report I'd abandoned the night before. So I sat down, hands shaking, and forced myself to work. For an hour, nothing happened. The office stayed quiet. The lights stayed stable. No one screamed. No whispers slithered through the vents. But then, the temperature dropped. Not gradually, not naturally. It felt like someone had opened the door to a walk-in freezer. The lights dimmed. The floor creaked. The air thickened. And from across the room, the glass office light flickered on. Slowly, unnaturally. I didn't want to look. God, I didn't. But my body turned on its own, like something inside me needed to confirm the nightmare. Eddie was standing in the center of the room, not facing me, not facing the window. He was staring at the chair where he had died. His head twitched, his shoulder jerked, his spine bent backward with a sickening crack that echoed across the quiet office. Then, as the lights flickered violently, Eddie slowly turned his head toward me, his neck bending past human limits. His eyes locked onto mine with a look that screamed one thing. You're next. The glass began to frost over, spiderweb cracks forming from the inside as if something was pressing against it. Eddie raised one hand and pressed it against the glass, then the other. His fingers curled, scraping down the surface with nails far too long. The cracks spread. The room vibrated. The lights exploded overhead. The glass shattered outward. I ducked under my desk as shards rained across the floor. A freezing wind swept through the office, carrying with it a whisper that sank into my bones. Join me. I crawled backward, heart slamming against my ribs, lungs burning. But the whisper followed. The cold followed. The presence followed. Until hands grabbed my shoulders, not cold ones, human ones. Jenna. Get up, she shouted. We're leaving, now. We ran, down the hall, past the cubicles, through the emergency exit, down the stairs 2 steps at a time. I didn't breathe until we burst into the parking lot. Even then, my chest felt tight, like something was still watching. The police came 30 minutes later. They found nothing. No broken glass, no frost, no messages on the window, no sign the glass office had ever been touched, and worst of all, no sign Eddie had ever existed. The room was empty. The computer was gone. The desk was missing. The walls were bare. The system logs claimed the room had been unoccupied for 10 years. The officers questioned me for hours, but there was nothing left to prove my story. The next morning, I quit. I moved out of the city 2 days later. But sometimes, late at night, I still see him. In reflections, in the corner of my eye, in dark windows at 3 a.m. Because once Eddie chooses you, you never stop seeing him, and he never stops watching.